The desperate solution. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating above her desk, its soft blue glow illuminating the dark circles under her eyes. The simulation showed a star's core collapsing in on itself, its energy being siphoned away through quantum channels her team had spent 3 years designing. This was attempt number 2847. And for the first time, the containment field held. "Run it again," she whispered, though no one else remained in the underground lab at this hour. The computers hummed as they processed her request. Outside her office window, the massive caverns of Luna Base Echo stretched into darkness, carved deep beneath the moon's surface after the Vanguard's first attack had demonstrated how vulnerable surface installations were. The simulation played again. The artificial star collapsed, its energy perfectly contained and redirected. No breach, no explosion, no failure cascade. After thousands of attempts, they'd finally solved the quantum stability problem. Sarah should have felt elated. Instead, her hand trembled as she reached for her coffee mug, remembering the billions who had died while she worked on this solution. The door chimed. "Enter," she called out, not taking her eyes off the display. Fleet Admiral Torres stepped into the office, his weathered face grave. Even at 300 hours, his uniform was immaculate. "Dr. Chen, I received your message. Is it true?" Sarah nodded, gesturing to the hologram. "See for yourself, Admiral. Stable containment at 99.7% efficiency. We can do it. We can build a ship that harvests the energy of stars." Torres watched the simulation complete another cycle, his expression unreadable. "The cost? 200 billion credits. Minimum. We'll need to construct it in deep space, away from prying eyes. The engineering challenges alone." She trailed off, rubbing her temples. "That's not the cost I meant." Torres stepped closer to the hologram, studying the collapsing star. "What happens to the surrounding systems when we use this weapon?" Sarah's voice was quiet. "Total collapse of the local space-time fabric within a radius of approximately 2 light-years. Any planets, any life within that range." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Torres nodded slowly. "And if we don't build it?" They both knew the answer. The Vanguard had appeared 3 years ago, their massive ships emerging from what humans had thought was empty space. They hadn't attempted communication, hadn't made demands. They simply began methodically destroying human colonies, their weapons capable of cracking planets. Earth's most powerful ships were swatted aside like insects. "How soon can you begin construction?" Torres asked. Sarah pulled up another display, this one showing technical specifications. "I have a team ready. We've been planning this for months, hoping the simulations would succeed. We've identified a construction site in the Kuiper Belt, far from the Vanguard's usual patrol routes, with unlimited resources and priority access to what's left of our industrial capacity." She did some quick calculations. 8 months. "You have 6. Torres' voice was firm. "Latest intelligence suggests the Vanguard is massing for a push toward the inner solar system. Earth itself may be their next target." Sarah started to protest but stopped herself. The Admiral was right. They were running out of time. "I'll need the best engineers we have left, and permission to requisition any materials I need, no questions asked." "Done." Torres pulled out a small data chip and placed it on her desk. "This contains your new security clearance and project authorization. As of now, you're answering directly to me. Project designation: Eclipse." Sarah picked up the chip, feeling its weight. Not just the physical weight of the tiny device, but the weight of what they were about to attempt. "Sir, if this works, we'll be crossing a line, creating something that could be classified as a superweapon." Torres moved to the window, gazing out at the cavern. Construction crews were visible in the distance, working to expand the base's capacity as refugees continued to flood in from fallen colonies. "Dr. Chen, the Vanguard crossed that line when they began exterminating our species without provocation or mercy. Sometimes survival requires us to become what we fear." He turned back to face her. Build your ship, Doctor. Make it capable of harvesting the very stars themselves. And when it's ready, his eyes hardened, we'll show the Vanguard that humanity is not so easily erased from the galaxy. Sarah nodded, already pulling up more technical diagrams. She had 6 months to create something unprecedented in human history, a vessel that could consume the energy of stars themselves. As Torres left her office, she began sending messages to her team. None of them would be sleeping much in the months ahead. The time for ethical debates was over. Now it was a race for survival. And Sarah Chen intended to win that race, no matter the cost to her conscience or to the universe itself. As she worked through the night, the simulation continued to play behind her. A star collapsed again and again, its light fading into darkness. Soon, it wouldn't just be a simulation. Soon, the galaxy itself would witness what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge of extinction. And God help anyone who stood in their way. Building the impossible. The construction facility materialized out of the darkness of the Kuiper Belt like a mirage, its massive framework illuminated by artificial suns that kept the workers from going mad in the endless night. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez watched through the viewport as another section of hull plating was maneuvered into place by robotic arms the size of small ships. The vessel taking shape before him bore little resemblance to traditional human warships. Its hull was midnight black, designed to absorb rather than reflect energy, with intricate patterns of quantum circuitry running through its surface like luminescent veins. At just over 2 kilometers in length, the ESS Nightshade would be the largest ship humanity had ever constructed. Beautiful, isn't she? Dr. Chen's voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to see the project director floating through the observation deck's zero-gravity environment. Dark circles under her eyes testament to another sleepless night. Beautiful and terrifying, Marcus replied, turning back to the view. The quantum core installation begins tomorrow. My team's running final checks now. Sarah nodded, pulling up a holographic display of the ship's schematics. The containment systems. Triple redundant, as specified. Though I still think we're rushing this. Marcus gestured to a section of the blueprints. The interface between the stellar harvesting arrays and the main power distribution network. We've never tested anything like this at full scale. We don't have a choice. Sarah's voice was tight. The Vanguard hit another colony yesterday. New Mars. 3 million dead. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. His sister had been stationed there. He hadn't received any messages since the attack. How long until they reach Earth? Intelligence gives us 2 months. Maybe less. Sarah manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the ship's core. That's why we need to begin preliminary tests next week. Admiral Torres is sending the first crew contingent. Captain Diana Wells will be arriving to take command. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Wells? The one who held the line at Titan. The same. She kept 3 civilian transport ships alive against a Vanguard destroyer, lost her own ship in the process, but saved 12,000 colonists. Sarah's expression was grim. We need someone who's faced them directly. Someone who understands what we're up against. A warning klaxon sounded through the station. Marcus quickly pulled up a security feed. Proximity alert. Unknown signature at the edge of our sensor range. Sarah was already moving toward the command center. Classification. Too small for a Vanguard ship. Marcus followed her, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. Might be a scout drone. They'd been pushing deeper into the system lately. The command center was a hive of activity when they arrived. Technicians worked frantically at their stations while security officers coordinated with the facility's minimal defensive screens. Status, Sarah demanded. Single contact, moving fast, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the sensor station. No match in our database, but energy signature suggests advanced propulsion technology. If it's Vanguard, they'll find the facility, Marcus said quietly. Everything we've built. Sarah's face hardened. Not today. She opened a channel to the construction teams. All personnel, Implement Protocol Omega. This is not a drill. Repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect. Throughout the facility, lights dimmed as power was diverted to experimental stealth systems. The artificial suns winked out one by one, plunging the construction yard into darkness. Only the faint glow of emergency lighting remained. Contact is still approaching, Hayes reported. We'll enter visual range in 3 minutes. Sarah turned to Marcus. How much of the quantum shielding is installed on the Nightshade? 70% coverage on the forward sections. But the systems aren't calibrated yet. If we try to power them up, better than letting them find us. Sarah opened another channel. Engineering Team Alpha, begin emergency power-up sequence for the Nightshade's quantum shields. Divert all non-essential power. Marcus watched the readouts as energy began flowing through the ship's untested systems. The quantum circuitry in the hull blazed to life, creating distortions in the space around the vessel. 2 minutes to visual contact. The shield harmonics fluctuated wildly as the emergency startup continued. Marcus's hands flew over his console, trying to stabilize the power flow. We're seeing cascading feedback in the southern quadrant. If the containment fails, hold it together, Sarah ordered. Just a few more minutes. 1 minute to contact. The entire facility shuddered as the Nightshade's shields reached full power. Warnings flashed across multiple displays as systems redlined. Marcus diverted emergency power to shore up failing containment fields, knowing they were pushing the untested technology far beyond safety margins. Contact entering visual range. Now, everyone held their breath as the unknown vessel passed through their sector of space. Through the command center's windows, they could see a sleek shape moving against the star field, its hull covered in patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. It's definitely Vanguard technology, Sarah whispered. The scout ship moved with impossible grace, its sensors surely probing the darkness around it. If they detected anything unusual, if the quantum shields failed for even a moment. Minutes stretched like hours as the vessel continued its patrol. Finally, Lieutenant Hayes spoke. Contact is moving away from our position. No indication they detected us. A collective sigh of relief went through the command center. Sarah immediately began issuing orders to power down the emergency systems before they burned out completely. Marcus studied the damage reports flooding his terminal. We lost 3 power relays and a dozen shield emitters. It'll set us back at least a week. But we're still here. Sarah's voice was firm. And now we know the quantum shielding works, even if it's not elegant yet. She turned to address the command center crew. Good work, everyone. But let's be clear, this was a warning. The Vanguard are getting closer. We need the Nightshade ready for trials in 14 days. That's impossible, Marcus protested. After this damage, nothing is impossible, Chief Engineer. Sarah's eyes held the same fire he'd seen when she first proposed the stellar harvesting technology. We're building a ship that can eat stars. We're long past impossible. As emergency crews began assessing the damage, Marcus looked out at the Nightshade's dark silhouette. Sarah was right. They were attempting something unprecedented in human history. Whether it would be their salvation or their doom remained to be seen. But with the Vanguard closing in and Earth itself at risk, they were out of options. The Nightshade would fly in 14 days, ready or not, and the galaxy would learn what humanity was capable of when pushed to the brink. First blood. Captain Diana Wells stood on the bridge of the ESS Nightshade, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical display. The red dots representing the Vanguard fleet hung in space like a constellation of death. 15 ships surrounding the binary star system of Proxima Centauri, their latest staging ground for attacks on Earth's colonies. All departments report ready, Captain, announced Commander James Chen, her XO, and the younger brother of the ship's creator. His fingers danced across his console, bringing up final system checks. Diana nodded, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Everything they'd trained for over the past 2 weeks had led to this moment. Dr. Chen, status of the stellar harvesting system. Sarah Chen's voice came through the comm from her position in engineering. Core is stable. Quantum fields are aligned. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Diana took a deep breath. Very well. All hands. This is the captain. Battle stations. Throughout the massive ship, warning klaxons sounded as crew members rushed to their posts. They'd drilled this countless times in simulation, but this was different. This was real. Tactical analysis, Diana ordered. Lieutenant Maria Santos responded from her weapons station. Vanguard fleet consists of 12 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and 1 dreadnought. Standard defensive formation. Their energy signatures suggest they're not at full alert. They don't expect anyone to be foolish enough to attack them directly, James commented quietly. Diana's lips curved in a grim smile. That's about to change. Helm, take us in. Full stealth approach. The Nightshade glided forward, its quantum-enhanced hull absorbing any radiation that might betray their presence. They'd learned from the scout ship's visit. The vessel's stealth systems were now fully operational, making them virtually invisible to Vanguard sensors. Range to target star, 30 million kilometers, reported the helm officer. Entering optimal harvesting range in 5 minutes. Diana's mind raced through options. They didn't have enough power remaining to fight the entire fleet. If they tried to harvest the star now, the Vanguard's quantum disruption fields would likely cause a catastrophic containment failure. And if the aliens succeeded in imploding the star, Dr. Chen, she called out, what would happen if their compression field interacted with our quantum harvesters? The energy release would. Sarah's voice trailed off as she ran calculations. Wait, the resonance patterns. Captain, if we inverted our containment fields and synchronized them with the compression wave. In English, Doctor, we could create a feedback loop, use their own energy against them, but we'd have to time it perfectly, and, she hesitated. The star would still be destroyed, but the energy would be dispersed instead of harvested. We'd be giving up our weapon. Diana looked at the tactical display, watching the Vanguard's energy web tighten around the star. Then she glanced at the long-range sensors showing the spreading gravitational distortions from their previous harvest, the damage they'd done to space itself. Your weapon is an abomination, the Vanguard leader stated. It proves we were right to judge your species unworthy of existence. Diana smiled grimly. No. What proves you wrong about humanity is that we're willing to destroy our own weapon to save this sector of space, even if it means sacrificing our best chance at defeating you. She turned to her crew. Begin field inversion. Prepare to synchronize with their compression wave. Captain, James protested, without the stellar harvester, we can't stop their invasion of Earth. Maybe not, Diana agreed, but we'll find another way. One that doesn't involve ripping apart the galaxy itself. She faced the Vanguard leader's image. We are not what you think we are. We create, yes. We build weapons when we must, but we also know when to step back from the precipice. The alien leader's form pulsed with what might have been surprise. You would surrender your advantage. No, we're choosing a different path, one that proves we deserve our place among the stars. Diana's voice hardened. Now watch closely. Dr. Chen, begin the sequence. The Nightshade's quantum harvesters powered up one final time, but instead of reaching out to consume the star's energy, they created a complex pattern of interference waves. The ship shuddered as their fields intersected with the Vanguard's compression web. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to flutter as the two technologies interacted. The star's surface rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Energy dispersal beginning, Sarah reported. The stellar matter is spreading outward instead of collapsing. The gravitational effects are stabilizing. On the tactical display, they watched as Barnard's star seemed to come apart like a dandelion in the wind, its energy spreading harmlessly into space rather than being harvested or imploding catastrophically. The Vanguard ship's energy web dissolved as their compression field was disrupted. The alien leader studied them silently for a long moment. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment of your species. We're not asking for your approval, Diana replied. Just your attention. Humanity will defend itself, but we won't destroy the galaxy to do it. Now shall we discuss terms for a real dialogue between our peoples? The Vanguard leader's form shifted, its inner light patterns changing. You are not what we expected. We will consider your offer. As the transmission ended, Diana turned to her crew. Stand down from battle stations. Dr. Chen, begin working on a way to help stabilize the gravitational damage from our previous harvest. Let's show them that humans can repair as well as destroy. She walked to the window, watching the last traces of Barnard's star dissipate into space. They had created a weapon of unimaginable power, then chosen to destroy it rather than become the very thing they were fighting against. It might not have been the victory they'd planned for, but perhaps it was the one they needed. Send a message to Admiral Torres, she ordered. Tell him humanity just passed a test we didn't know we were taking. And we're ready to show the galaxy what we can really do when we build instead of destroy. The Nightshade turned away from the dissolving star, its quantum shields now redirected to help contain the gravitational damage they caused. They had chosen their path. Now it was time to prove they'd made the right choice. Behind them, in the darkness of space, the Vanguard fleet held position, watching, and perhaps finally beginning to understand. As the adrenaline faded, Diana felt the weight of what they'd done settle over the bridge. They'd proven the weapon worked beyond their wildest expectations. They'd shown the Vanguard that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. But as she watched the star die behind them, Diana Wells wondered what they'd unleashed upon the galaxy, and whether, in their desperate bid for survival, they'd created something that would eventually consume them all. The price of power. Admiral Torres stood before the holographic display in Luna Base Echo's command center, watching the time-lapse footage of the Proxima Centauri system. The smaller star of the binary pair had collapsed completely, its death throes sending waves of gravitational distortion through the system. Already, 2 uninhabited planets had been torn from their orbits, their trajectories now carrying them into the cold of interstellar space. The effect is spreading faster than we predicted, Dr. Chen explained, manipulating the display to show gravitational models. The destabilization of local space-time continues even after the stellar matter is consumed. We're seeing ripples across light years. Casualties? Torres asked quietly. None this time. We chose the target carefully. But Sarah hesitated. The next star we harvest might trigger a cascade effect. We can't predict exactly how the damage will spread. Before Torres could respond, an aide rushed into the command center. Sir, urgent transmission from the Nightshade. Captain Wells reports multiple Vanguard fleets converging on their position. Torres immediately opened a channel to the ship. Diana Wells' hologram appeared before them, her expression grim. Admiral, we've detected at least 30 Vanguard vessels approaching from 3 vectors. Their energy signatures are different. Different how? Sarah stepped forward, concern etching her features. They've modified their ships, Diana replied. We're seeing massive power readings, unlike anything in our database. They've adapted their technology somehow. Sarah quickly pulled up the sensor data the Nightshade was transmitting. Her eyes widened as she analyzed the readings. They're using their own version of quantum containment fields. Not as advanced as ours, but she looked at Torres. They're trying to counter our stellar harvesting technology. Can they? Torres demanded. Unknown, but they had 2 weeks to study what we did to that star. The Vanguard's technological advancement rate is, she shook her head. We need to assume they've developed some kind of defense. On the hologram, Diana's image flickered as the ship's communications dealt with increasing interference. Admiral, request permission to engage. We still have 40% power reserves from the last harvest. Torres studied the tactical display, watching the Vanguard fleets close in on the Nightshade's position. That's not enough power to fight 30 ships, even with their reduced strength. You need to harvest another star. Sir, Sarah interrupted. The gravitational distortions are still spreading from the last harvest. If we take another star so soon, in the same region of space, she gestured to her calculations, the cascade effect could tear apart half the sector, including 7 populated systems, Diana added quietly. There are millions of colonists who haven't been evacuated yet. Torres closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of command press down on him. When he opened them, his voice was steel. Captain Wells, proceed to the Barnard's star system. It's uninhabited, and the gravitational impact should be minimized by the local stellar geography. Admiral, Sarah protested, even if the damage is contained, we're still talking about destroying entire star systems. There has to be another way. The Vanguard don't leave survivors, Dr. Chen. Torres's voice was quiet but firm. They've destroyed 15 colonies in the past month alone. Earth itself will be next if we don't stop them here. Diana's hologram nodded grimly. Understood, sir. Setting course for Barnard's star. But, she hesitated. The Vanguard fleet's formation suggests they're herding us in that direction. They want us to do this. It's a trap, Sarah said. They must have found a way to interfere with the harvesting process. Probably, Torres agreed. But we're out of options. Captain Wells, proceed as planned, but be prepared for anything. If the Vanguard have developed countermeasures, we need to know now, before they reach Earth. Aye, sir. Nightshade out. Diana's hologram vanished. Sarah turned to Torres. Admiral, even if we win this battle, the damage we're doing to space itself, these effects could last for centuries. We're changing the very structure of our galaxy. Better a damaged galaxy than one where humanity is extinct. Torres watched as the tactical display showed the Nightshade accelerating toward Barnard's star, the Vanguard fleet in pursuit. We crossed a line when we built that ship, Dr. Chen. Now we have to live with the consequences. In her lab later that night, Sarah reviewed the sensor data from the Proxima Centauri harvest again and again. The gravitational distortions were spreading in patterns she hadn't anticipated, creating ripples in spacetime that defied their models. And now they were about to harvest another star, possibly triggering an even larger cascade. Her computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from her brother James, still aboard the Nightshade. The crew is afraid, Sarah. Not of the Vanguard, but of what we've become. Everyone saw what happened to that star, what we did to it. Some are saying we're worse than the aliens now, that we're not protecting humanity, we're damning it. Sarah stared at the message for a long time before composing her reply. Maybe we are damned, James, but if we don't stop the Vanguard, there won't be any humanity left to judge us. Just make sure you come back alive. Whatever happens at Barnard's star, whatever we've unleashed upon the galaxy, we'll face it together. As she sent the message, Sarah's monitors lit up with new alerts. The gravitational distortions from Proxima Centauri had reached another star system. On her screen, she watched as space itself began to tear, reality warping under the strain of powers that were never meant to be contained. They had created their weapon to save humanity. Now she could only pray they hadn't doomed it instead. Humanity's choice. The Nightshade dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Barnard's star system, its quantum shields already adapting to deflect the ancient red dwarf's radiation. Captain Diana Wells felt the ship's subtle vibration change as they decelerated, a reminder of the immense powers they were containing within its hull. Multiple Vanguard signatures detected. Lieutenant Santos reported from Tactical. They've already surrounded the star, Captain. 47 ships total. Diana studied the tactical display, noting the strange configurations of the alien vessels. Their hulls now bristled with new structures that pulsed with quantum energy, technology adapted from studying the Nightshade's attack at Proxima Centauri. Dr. Chen, she called over the comm, analysis of their modifications. Sarah's voice came back tense. They've definitely replicated aspects of our containment technology. Those structures appear designed to disrupt quantum fields. They could interfere with our stellar harvesting process. Could they harvest the star themselves? No, Sarah replied. Their technology isn't advanced enough yet, but they might be able to prevent us from doing it. Commander James Chen looked up from his station. Captain, new energy readings from the Vanguard fleet. They're powering up some kind of combined weapons system. Before Diana could respond, a transmission cut through their communications. The bridge crew stared as a Vanguard appeared on their main screen, the first time any human had seen one of their leaders. The alien's form was both beautiful and terrible, its crystalline body housing swirling energies that hurt the eyes to look at directly. When it spoke, its words were translated by their computers into a harsh, metallic voice. Humans, you have violated the natural order with your star-eating abomination. You have damaged the very fabric of space-time itself. Surrender now, and your species will be granted a quick extinction. Diana stood from her command chair. This is Captain Wells of the ESS Nightshade. You attacked us without provocation, slaughtered our colonies, and drove us to create this weapon. The responsibility for what happens next lies with you. Your species is too dangerous to be allowed to exist, the Vanguard leader replied. You create without understanding. You build without wisdom. The weapon you have made will destroy far more than you intended. Sarah's voice cut in urgently. Captain, detecting massive power buildup from their fleet. They're forming some kind of energy lattice around the star. The Vanguard leader's form seemed to pulse with inner light. We will destroy this system ourselves rather than allow you to harvest another star. The damage you have already done must not be allowed to spread further. The tactical display blazed as the Vanguard fleet's combined energy web began to compress the star, trying to trigger a premature collapse that would destroy everything in the system, including themselves. They're willing to die to stop us, James whispered. Diana opened a channel to engineering. Dr. Chen, begin power-up sequence for the stellar harvester. Deep within the ship, machinery that defied conventional physics hummed to life. The quantum circuitry in the hull began to glow with an inner light as energy coursed through pathways designed to contain the power of a star. Contact. Santos called out suddenly. Vanguard patrol ship on an intercept course. They must have spotted our gravity wake. Time to harvesting range. 3 minutes, Captain. Diana studied the tactical display. The patrol ship would reach them before they could achieve optimal position. Lieutenant Santos, prepare a conventional weapons volley. Let's show them what else this ship can do. The Nightshade's outer weapon ports opened, revealing arrays of advanced human weaponry. They couldn't match the Vanguard's technology yet, but they could hurt them. Fire. Beams of concentrated energy lashed out across space, catching the patrol ship off guard. Its shields flared brilliant blue under the assault. The Vanguard vessel returned fire, its exotic weapons splashing against the Nightshade's quantum-reinforced shields. Shields holding at 87%, reported Santos. Their entire fleet is moving to engage. Range to star. 1 minute to optimal position. Diana watched as the Vanguard fleet broke formation, their ships accelerating with impossible grace. Dr. Chen, we need that harvester online now. Initiating primary sequence, Sarah replied, her voice tense with concentration. Quantum fields are stable. Beginning solar interface in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered as invisible tendrils of energy reached out toward Proxima Centauri's smaller companion star. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the star's corona began to ripple and distort. Energy intake beginning, Sarah reported. Containment fields holding steady, power levels rising. The Vanguard fleet opened fire, their combined weapons turning space itself into a deadly lattice of energy. The Nightshade's shields absorbed the assault, but warning indicators began flashing across multiple stations. Shields at 60%. Maintain position, Diana ordered. Dr. Chen. Power at 30% capacity and climbing. The stellar matter is flowing faster than we predicted. The star's magnetic field is actually helping to channel the energy. On the main view screen, They could see the terrible beauty of what they'd created. The companion star was visibly dimming as the nightshade drank in its substance, converting stellar matter into pure energy. The quantum core thrummed with power that human science had never before contained. Vanguard ships are launching fighters, Santos reported. They're trying to surround us. Power at 70%. Sarah called out. Captain, we're seeing unexpected gravitational effects. The star's collapse is accelerating. Diana watched as the Vanguard fleet moved to encircle them, their weapons charging for another devastating barrage. But she could feel the difference in the ship now. The barely contained power of a dying star coursing through its systems. Shields failing. Dr. Chen, how much power do we need for weapons? 50% would be sufficient, but then we have enough. Diana's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. Lieutenant Santos, prepare to engage the stellar cannon. Target the Vanguard dreadnought. Santos' hands moved across her console, routing the harvested stellar energy through the weapon systems they'd barely had time to test. Targeting solutions ready. Diana took one last look at the tactical display. The Vanguard ships had them surrounded, their weapons ready to tear the Nightshade apart. But they didn't understand what they were facing. They couldn't comprehend what humanity had created in its desperate bid for survival. Fire. A lance of pure stellar energy erupted from the Nightshade's bow, carrying with it the power of a dying star. It struck the Vanguard dreadnought dead center. For a split second, the massive vessel's shields held. Then they collapsed, and the ship itself simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energies it was never designed to withstand. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as secondary explosions rippled through the nearby Vanguard ships, their shields overwhelmed by the backwash of power. 3 destroyers disappeared in balls of plasma. A cruiser, its hull partly melted, spun out of control. Multiple Vanguard ships breaking formation, Santos reported, her voice shaking. They're retreating. Diana stared at the destruction they'd wrought. The remaining Vanguard vessels fled at maximum acceleration, leaving their dead behind. Behind the Nightshade, the companion star continued to collapse, its light fading as its matter was converted into energy for their weapons. Stand down from battle stations, she ordered quietly. Dr. Chen, begin power down sequence for the Harvester.